What is going on, everybody? It's Alex coming back here with another video, and today we are going to be doing a way too early redraft of the 2019 or slash 2020 NFL draft. So obviously want to come at y'all with a little bit of a different video. We're going to be having a lot of different stuff. We're actually going to start doing into player dives, deep dives into players, excuse me. But I'm going to see if I get demonetized for that. Hopefully I don't. We'll see, because again, the NCAA doesn't own the tape, and neither does anybody else. So if we are able to do that, we're going to have a whole new series coming in soon that you guys are going to definitely enjoy. Obviously, records predictions coming in soon. And again, keep dropping ideas for videos down below, because this was one where I was just messing around for a 2022 mock, and I was like, well, what if we just did a redo of the 2020 NFL draft? So here we are. There won't be any trades. We're going to be doing, I believe, 2 rounds. I think I did select 2 rounds. I did. So let's have some fun. All right, so starting off with the number 1 pick. Obviously, this one is a pretty interesting one when you think about it nowadays. It's like, okay, well, what would the Bengals do? Obviously, we know Bengals went Jamar Chase. So it's like, would you rather go Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow? Personally, I'd rather go Justin Herbert now that we do know. But we're going to give Joe Burrow the benefit of the doubt. It's not big enough of a difference between Joe and Justin to be able to justify, no pun intended, being able to move on from Joe Burrow. So we're going to be still selecting Joe Burrow as the star of the Bengals. And y'all already know, the top 2 picks in this draft were pretty damn correct, in my opinion. Chase Young has to be this pick. It's just, again, generational style talent. We could go after a quarterback, but again, we already know Washington, now they're set up for a long ass time, because Chase Young is going to be the leader of that defense, and now they can address quarterback later on. And again, like, maybe you could say that, oh, they could have busted out and then in the 2022 class gotten Kayvon Thibodeau, but it doesn't really matter. Number 3 overall, this was where Jeff Okudah went. And this is obviously not the right way to go. But when you look at the rest of the prospects, like, this is what we know now. It's not what would have been at the draft time. You could look at Tristan Wirfs. They did just sign Vitae though, so we can't really go with that. You could look at getting a guy like Justin Herbert here as well. It just really depends on what the Lions want to do, and that's what makes this pick so difficult. Is like, do you want to go offensive lineman? Maybe. Do you want to go Isaiah Simmons because Jared Davis is kind of sucking? Maybe. But Isaiah Simmons turned out to not be as great of a prospect as we thought. The linebacker class was honestly quite weak, if we're going to be 100% fair. Willie Gay Jr. was pretty damn good, though. So with that all factored in, I think you take the franchise quarterback. I'm going to be honest. I think you trade away Matt Stafford. You take Justin Herbert. It's a really weird pick, but again, with what we know, Justin Herbert is an absolute stud. So you take him and you make sure that your franchise is good. And again, get Matt Stafford to a place where a team will actually appreciate him. So I like that quite a bit. So number 4, the Giants are on the board. And this is a simple pick for me as well. You needed a tackle. Andrew Thomas wasn't it, but Tristan Wirfs was. So I actually was predicting Tristan Wirfs to the Giants for quite a while, but didn't happen. Obviously, Tristan Wirfs is a beast, though. We all knew that. And someone who I was very, very high on. Number 5, the Dolphins. Now that we know Tua isn't the guy that we thought he was, we should probably look somewhere else. And they didn't have a tackle at the time, because that's why they got Austin Jackson in this draft class. So when looking at the tackles, Mekhi Becton's an unbelievable talent here. You can have Ryan Fitzmagic for a year and have Mekhi Becton just solidify that offensive front. Unbelievable talent right there out of Louisville. I'm a big fan of him. And number 6, the Chargers on the board, and they needed a quarterback. But are we going to get Tua for him? I don't think Tua would be worth the number 6 overall pick. If we want to be selecting him later on, maybe, but it just doesn't feel right. So at this pick, you got to look at all the options, right? You can look at a wide receiver if you want to add to the wide receiver core. You can look at a corner to add to this corner core. Obviously, at the time, they had a pretty solidified corner core. Isaiah Simmons is on the board as well. But if we want to look at it, quarterback, again, not really something that we'd look at. Running back, not something this high. And the wide receivers, they honestly didn't impress as much as we thought. Justin Jefferson is an option, however. Again, linebackers and tight ends were just a complete bust in this year. Same thing with the pass rushers. Honestly, quite surprising. But, I mean, where would you guys go here? You guys got to comment that down below. To be honest, Sam Tevi was their left tackle. And I think that we're going to see a run on left tackles here just because, again, Well, Jedrick Wills played right tackle, but I think that honestly he could play left tackle. Andrew Thomas was the worst of the bunch. So we're going to be going Jedrick Wills here and just so re-solidifying this offensive line. So big fan of that. Go Jedrick Wills. Be able to put him at left tackle. Just keep rocking with it. Number 7, the Panthers are on the board, and I don't think they really regret going after Derek Brown. But knowing how well Matt Rule uses defensive players, I think this is where you can take a guy like Isaiah Simmons. I really do. He fell to 8, right? He actually got past this pick in the real draft. And then it doesn't seem like he'd be worth the pick, but it's definitely something that we should probably be targeting. We could be targeting even safeties at this spot because we already know Antoine Winfield Jr., Jeremy Chin, those guys both were really, really good. But at this spot, man, I mean, I just believe Derek Brown didn't turn out to be as great as he could have been. Has time to develop. Don't worry about that. But I think if you want a day one impact, I think Isaiah Simmons in the squad is going to be playing that Chung role. I'd honestly take him. I'm still very high on Isaiah Simmons. I think that he could take a big step in his development and make a very, very big impact. Number 8, the Cardinals are sitting there on the board, and we haven't selected for him. I was about to do the 2019 draft all over again, but sitting at this spot, there's a couple routes that we could go. So obviously the Cardinals went Isaiah Simmons, which was a crazy steal at the time, and obviously still would be a steal because there's so much potential there. But looking at it, you could go CJ Henderson. There's obviously still lacking a second cornerback there. You could go Justin Jefferson as well. Obviously, we all know that Christian Kirk isn't really the future at that slot position. And then on the outside, like Andy Isabella, I think he wasn't taken in this draft. He might have been taken the year before, but there was just a lot of big miscues in terms of the draft for the Cardinals, for like basically what they had to do. And there's a lot of misses. But when we look at it right now, they don't need quarterback. They could use a corner, but again, Jeffrey Okudah busted out. So we're not going to be able to say that he was a big hit. Obviously, we can look at Jalen Johnson as a guy who would be a solid option. Noah Igbenogany. It's an interesting one, right? You got even Cam Dantzler, but again, you don't need that. You got Byron Murphy. So when we look at all the options, guys, I think that I'd rather go probably they went after 2 interior defensive line in this draft. So I know that they desperately needed it. Derek Brown is a legit threat. I think that he is the best interior defensive lineman in the class. And I think that you draft him because the hole at the interior defensive line spot, they had like Lecky Fotu starting last year. So you go with it. You go Derek Brown. Again, I thought that these picks swapped, but for a good reason. I think that was definitely worth it there. So at number 9, we got the Jaguars on the board, and I honestly think that they got this pick right. We could go Andrew Thomas here for sure. Just go all the tackles at the top, which again, they proved to actually be all really solid tackles. But I think they got this pick right. I think you rock CJ Henderson here. You could go Jalen Johnson, who played better than him, but CJ Henderson to me played the best out of all the corners in the class. I think he has the most potential. When we saw him play against Phillip Rivers in that first game, I saw elite lockdown potential. I'm going to go CJ Henderson, say that the Jags got it right. And at number 10, the Browns are sitting there, and it's like, ooh, what do we do? We can get Andrew Thomas, put him at right tackle. We could get a wide receiver. We can get edge talent. Obviously, you could still get Justin Jefferson there. Could get safety talent as well. I think you go after the tackle, though. They went after it in the draft. They're going to go after it now. This was a pick I did very often to the Browns. Andrew Thomas. Big fan of it. Number 11, the Jets are sitting there, and, well, there's a lot of different routes that we could go here, but I think wide receiver, you got to take one, right? All the tackles are off the board. This was Mekhi Becton, and I think that you have to go with somebody who would fit what you're looking for. They went after Denzel Mims, and that didn't work out. Well, he hasn't fully blossomed. I still have a lot of hope for Denzel Mims, but for me personally, the most well-rounded wide receiver probably would be it's a debate between these two guys. Jerry Jeudy dealt with drops, dealt with a terrible quarterback, and CeeDee Lamb had moments of excellence. I think that he still should be the first wide receiver selected in the draft. You take him, just go home with it, be happy, enjoy it. So at number 12, the Raiders are on the board, and we know Henry Ruggs was not it, but we do know, obviously I could have selected, honestly, I'm starting to regret that pick because Justin Jefferson's on the board. I think this will be Justin Jefferson. So to be honest, guys, just for the record, we're going to be flipping these two. I think CD will go right here, Justin right there. It doesn't really matter. Both wide receivers that fit the needs of the teams desperately. Tampa Bay. So they missed out on the tackle help. Obviously, there's not really another tackle in here where I would probably take them at this point. But you know who I would take? Somebody that they drafted later on. Antoine Winfield Jr. was a legit first 15 players worth. Like, he was unbelievably talented. Big fan of him. Love that pick. Number 14, the Niners are on the board. And if I'm not mistaken, this was Javon Kinlaw. And it still could be, like, given like how he hasn't like fully blossomed yet, but he definitely has that potential. So there is that potential for us to go that route. Obviously, they went after Ayuk later on, which Ayuk is a really talented player. So don't get me wrong, I would potentially still take him with that second first round pick. But we could go Jerry Jeudy here and be able to pair him up with Jimmy Garoppolo at the time, and then maybe go interior defensive line later. Again, if we want to look at the interior defensive line class, there is a big drop off after Kinlaw, and there is a big hole there. Obviously, now you got Maurice Hurst, but that's not the case back then. We're going to go back with Javon Kinlaw, say that they got it right. Again, the opportunity cost of losing Kinlaw is just too much, in my opinion. Broncos are sitting here, and they went after Jerry Jeudy. Still think that's probably the best move. Like, looking at the rest of the guys on the board, probably not in need of those guys. Tua Tagovailoa would be interesting, though. At the time, like, we're using what we do know now about the players as well. At the time, Drew Lock still needed another year to start. I'd consider getting Tua just because, again, Drew Lock wasn't great. But at the time, we did think that Drew Lock needed one more shot. I think they got it right. They're going to go Jerry Jeudy. Obviously, there are some wide receivers who I'd possibly take above him, but for what they're looking for in a fully well-rounded wide receiver, I think Jerry Jeudy was the right move. Now, we got the Falcons here, and again, Okuda's dropping just because, Okuda definitely didn't do that well, but I think they did the right move with getting a cornerback. However, I think Jalen Johnson was the best corner besides, of course, CJ Henderson. You take him. He's unbelievable. I was a huge fan of him, so gonna definitely stamp my approval on that pick. Number 17, the Cowboys are on the clock, and well, there's not really too much to steal from the Eagles, who are going to be coming up at pick 21. So there's not really that much of a need to be able to nag them from them. So let's address something that the Cowboys do desperately need. We could look at safety linebacker hybrids like Jeremy Chin could definitely be a really good option. Cornerback, you could go after Jeffrey Okudah and develop him for a year. Again, the secondary was pretty atrocious. We could even go edge. I know they were huge fans of Kayvon Chaisson, but he hasn't really come into his own. Looking at other guys, this was really a weak class. Alex Highsmith probably is one of the better ones. It's just kind of weird how terrible the class was. And then we could look at line, given the fact that they had some injury concerns. Could go after like an Austin Jackson to develop. But if we're going to be honest, we could look at the wide receivers as well and just go after one. Don't think that's the right move, though. If we're going to be honest, I think that going after an edge still would be a really good option, given how like, I'm pretty sure that what they had there in, oh my God, Aldon Smith wasn't perfect. I think Kayvon Chaisson would be really still a good option here. Let's go Kayvon Chaisson. Let's give him back the weapon that they were desperately looking for before Jerry was like, nah, we're getting the good old wide receiver CD Lamb. So we're going to go Chaisson here. I think that's a good pick overall. Let's stick to it. And at number 18, now the Dolphins are like, you know what? Tua has potential. It hasn't really shown much, though. Let's go Tua Tagovailoa. It didn't feel right to take him anywhere else, maybe besides the Broncos, but they weren't even looking for a quarterback at the time. Number 19, the Raiders. They're on the board, and I'm going to be honest, they need a lot of help. This is where we saw the infamous, horrific pick of Damon Arnett. But we're going to go for a better cornerback out of Ohio State, someone who has a lot of potential here. As Jeffrey Okudah, looking for other guys who could play at a high level. Don't really see many. We're going to go Jeff Okudah. He had a terrible year, but again, there's a lot of potential there. That's where you take a guy with potential. We already know that he didn't have a day one impact, so he's not going to have nearly as high of a draft grade. So at number 20, the Jaguars are on the board. This was Kayvon Chaisson, no longer an option, right? So safety definitely is still a concern. So for me, I'm looking at Jeremy Chin here. It's like you can use him as a safety linebacker hybrid. That would be a good move. Tackle-wise, don't really see much. Austin Jackson, again, super developmental, not really something that you want to do. Linebacker-wise, not really vibing with the idea. Could, of course, go with a wide receiver here, but again, not really vibing with that idea. So for me, honestly, I'm going to be going to safety here. We're going to go Jeremy Chin, really talented safety out of Southern Illinois. Somebody who I missed on, but I never really saw him, so I guess that's my fault on that. Number 22, the infamous Justin Jefferson pick. So that's not an option anymore. But you know what is an option? Brandon Ayuk. Okay, this wasn't the Justin Jefferson pick, but the Eagles still definitely needed to get a wide receiver. I think Brandon Ayuk would have been actually the right move. So I'm pretty happy with that move. But Brandon Ayuk would have been a really, really talented wide receiver on the Eagles. Obviously, I think Jalen Reagor still has potential, but he's not as good as Brandon Ayuk. Obviously, somebody who we're not talking about right now, Chase Claypool, as well as I think he might have been like a 6th-round dude, but the kid out of I'm forgetting where he's on the Bears. I mess up his name every time, so I'm not gonna do him the disrespect of that. But I'm forgetting it, and it's so annoying. Where is he at? Because it's like Darnell Mooney. He should definitely be in consideration for this draft, but not right now. So at number 22, the Vikings are on the board, and this is where I could see us taking a shot on a guy like Henry Ruggs. But we could also look at edge right now. Obviously, none of these guys really fit the mold. So they went after wide receiver with this pick. I think that Henry Ruggs could be a very interesting target for us right now. There are other wide receivers who are better. But I think you go with the potential of Henry Ruggs. Again, he has sky high potential. You take it. 23, the Chargers are on the clock. We could definitely go with Kenneth Murray again here. I thought he played better than Patrick Queen, but neither of them played that well. So if we're gonna be honest, this is a tough pick. This is a really tough pick, guys, because we could go after Austin Jackson to develop. But I'm pretty sure we already did go after a tackle. Yeah, we went after Jedrick Wills. So the quarterback spot is still vacant. But again, none of these guys. Jalen Hurts could be a really good option, though. That's something that I would consider him in the first in this redraft. But I'm considering taking wide receiver here, just because I know that there is definitely a guy who deserves to be this pick. So if we're looking at it, we could also go after a corner here. We all know that Jeff Gladney, he's not even going to be drafted. He has personality issues. AJ Terrell definitely could be the guy for us. He didn't have a terrible year at all. Had some flashes. Trevon Diggs just was a little bit slower. These guys, they did have two 31-year-old corners. So it is legitimately something that we could have targeted. I'm going to go back to the well, though. They got the pick right. Kenneth Murray here. Again, no quarterback on the roster besides Tyrod Taylor, but you don't reach at that point. Kenneth Murray is a beast. Take him right there. Number 24, the Saints are on the clock. And to me, man, the Saints have so many issues. They had a pretty good wide corner core at the time, right? They definitely had a good corner core. They went after offensive line to bolster that offense. And I think that was a good move. But I think the right way to go about it is getting Robert Hunt out of Louisiana Lafayette to go play guard for you. I'm a big fan of that idea. Robert Hunt plays right tackle right now for the Miami Dolphins, and I think he just fits really good well at as a guard. So kick him into guard. He played pretty well at tackle, but he will play even better at guard. 25, this is where Brandon Ayuk went, no longer an option. So what would the Niners do? So the Niners, we could definitely look at a guy like Trevon Diggs here. They pass on him in the real draft, but I mean, Jalen Reagor seems to be something that they'd be looking after, but I am going to be going with a guy who could fit a similar role in Darnell Mooney being a first-round pick. That's a sleeper first-round pick for me. Just Darnell Mooney. I would love it. Packers, pretty sure this is the Jordan Love pick. So I'm going to be able to fix that by giving them a real weapon. All these guys here are really talented players, but Chase Claypool, Mapletron is built different. So get him in there. Be able to have him and Devontae Adams carve up the league. At 27, this was Jordan Brooks, if I'm not mistaken. That's no longer an option. They are going to be going. Jordan Brooks wasn't part of this draft? Oh, he was. Yeah, that was the weirdest thing. Patrick Queen's going to be the pick. They needed linebacker help, and they're going to get it. Now, that kind of steals what the Ravens were wanting to do, but who cares? It's the Ravens. They'll find a way. So what do we do with the Ravens? Ravens, we could look at corner for depth. We could look at edge, but that's more of like a this year problem than last year. Safety wise, could definitely target that. Again, linebackers, it's a big drop off now. There was definitely, I mean, you could go after Willie Gay here. To be honest, I still might. And actually, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm a big fan of Willie Gay Jr. And I was during the draft. I thought that he'd be worth a late first, given his personality issues. And we're going to be giving that to him. Now, the Titans, the Titans, obviously at the time, they had a pretty well built wide receiver core. So the issue with them lied in pass rush. And we already know that the pass rush wasn't great in this class at all. So that's another that's a little bit of a pain to try to deal with. But looking at the guys, I mean, Alex Highsmith could be this pick, but I just don't think he's worth a first. Yeturgos Matos has potential as well, but again, didn't fully live up to it. This is a tough one, guys, because for me personally, it's like I don't know really what to do at this spot. We could definitely they were looking for a right tackle. This was the infamous pick for Isaiah Wilson. Oh, that hurts. We're going to be going Austin Jackson and moving him to right tackle. Very raw prospect, but he has shown some form of progression. I think that that's going to be a really good one. I was thinking about Matt Peart at that spot as well, but decided to pass on it. Now, the 30th pick, let's see what we already did. We got Mekhi Becton in there. We could still go another tackle with Tua Tagovailoa. I think we honestly might go another tackle with Matt Peart to be right tackle for him. Because again, we already know that they did eventually go 2 tackles in this class. Looking at the guys who are still available, though, you could get some extra pass rush. They already got that in free agency. Could do the corner route. Not a fan personally. We could even see a running back at this spot, but Jalen Reagor would be a fun one because wide receiver core is pretty brutal. The question is, do I go for a wide receiver or a running back here? I think T. Higgins would be an interesting addition to the squad. Michael Pittman Jr. as well. There's some interesting guys. I think Tyler Johnson's worth a first still. I don't really know what the hell happened there. T. Higgins lit up the league though, and he would be a really good second wide receiver on this squad. I think you take T. Higgins at this spot. Number 31, we got the Vikings again. This was Jeff Gladney's pick, but they weren't able to do that. Well, who did we pick for him? We picked Henry Ruggs. So I think an issue was either offensive line or else. Because Riley Reeve was pretty bunt, if I'm not mistaken. We could go with Ezra Cleveland, who they drafted, but we're going Matt Peart, who's played at a very high level in the plays that he did play this year. So kind of weird that New York didn't start him more. But at number 32, we got the Chiefs, and this was Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and we're still going to be going for a running back here. But to be honest, the best one, hands down, was Jonathan Taylor. And that's like kind of not close. DeAndre Swift changed his run style. And then, yeah, it's just kind of weird. Personally, I would go after a linebacker here, but we already took the one linebacker that was really, really good off the board. So with that being said, could look at the defensive line. Don't really this class didn't turn out to be that great of one, to be honest. You had some high end talent, but the depth didn't really hit the same. Yes, you guys were probably like, do not select somebody from the long snapper for them. But yeah, we're gonna go Jonathan Taylor here. He's definitely a higher end talent, but I might be ending the video right there. So if you guys are watching it, I hope you guys did enjoy. So obviously, if it is round 2, you'll be seeing me be like, I'm an idiot. We're going to round 2. But until then, I'll see you on the far side.